There's an uptick, obviously, of anti-immigrant sentiment, especially in the UK and the EU, but also, you know, in the United States. Before any election, you'll notice this, before literally any major election, especially the presidential, when it gets close enough to election day, when people are going to be voting, there's going to be some problem that they're either going to invent, like they're eating your dogs and cats thing, or, you know, just vague gesturing at immigrants being spooky or whatever, that they'll use to gin up fear in their base and get people to come out to vote out of fear, because they have nothing to offer. They can only make you scared and vote out of fear because they don't have any actual policies that help the average person who's voting for them. They only care about helping the wealthy. They only care about helping corporate interests that end up hurting the people who vote for the Republican Party. That's all they have. The hell is this? Content warning? The editor-in-chief of the National Review just said the N-word in regards to Haitians, and Megyn Kelly ignores it. What the f***? Do they censor it?
I think it was in that interview where Dana Bash says, you know, the police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian.
Oh my God! Holy, and he tries to stop himself. He's like, wait, hold up. Sorry, what I really meant to say came out. I know we're supposed to say like DEI or CRT. I'm aware like we're supposed to say illegal aliens or illegal immigrants. Sorry, I fucked up. I'm aware that you know that that is what I mean when I say DEI and all those other things, but I forgot that we're not supposed to just say the non-coded version. Good stuff. Good stuff, conservatives. Good stuff, Republican Party. You're doing a great job. Doing a great job. Keep it up. Keep it up. Oh, how Megyn Kelly's fallen, huh? Used to be a darling of Fox News. She left, rightfully so, after exposing people working at Fox, the men there, I forget who specifically, for their rampant sexual abuse and harassment. I should say harassment, allegedly, potentially even abuse of the female coworkers there. Ended up trying to have a daytime show on some other network. That failed, and now she's just relegated to being a Trumper on her own platform. Apparently, she just ignores it.
Migrants taking...
Yeah, you see that? I'm sorry, I missed it. I'm not gonna play it again. But he said Haitian and then the N-word, plural, hard R, and he went, stopped himself, and then said migrants. They're telling you, listen, when they say migrants, they mean N-word. Hard R. Now, if they talk about illegal immigrants from south of the border, Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, whatever, that's the same thing. Now, they may not use the N-word specifically, though a lot of them still do. They may also use other words. They'll probably use a word, you know, that is relevant to beans, or a word that is like spicy without the Y, but they might even use it, you know, because it's always what it's been. And I'm not going to be the first to say this. I'm not going to be the last to say it. I've talked about it on the stream before. The Lee Atwater clip where he talked about, you know, it used to be you could just call him the N-word. But now that doesn't work anymore because the voters don't like it as much. Because we lost our hold on the culture. So now you got to say things like force busing. And you got to push for policy that specifically makes the lives of the people we refer to as the N-word worse. You just can't be outright saying it. But like, we all know what we mean. It's the same shit, bro. As they continually lose the culture war, which is a really difficult war for them to win to begin with, because in order to agree with them when it comes to culture war type topics, and this even transcends the so-called culture war, which is kind of a sanitized version of what actually happens, which is like a lot of discrimination that leads to real world harm and like actual killings, lynchings, and all this other shit you're seeing about the fake story being circulated by the president of the United States, the vice president, and the entire right-wing media ecosystem of so-called illegal Haitian immigrants eating pets, which isn't happening and has not been substantiated in any way, shape, or form. That will lead to, like, bomb threats on schools apparently have happened because of it. It'll lead to a variety of negative externalities for people that aren't even the target at the moment, which is ostensibly just Haitian migrants or illegal immigrants. Because when it comes to the Haitians that are in Springfield, Ohio, they are there legally. It shouldn't matter to you, but in this specific case, they're also wrong on that point. If you thought they couldn't be any more wrong, they're also wrong on that point because they're there legally. They were allowed to move there through the US government in order to work, in order to help save the dying town of Springfield, Ohio, by joining the labor force and stimulating the economy, because the native population wasn't fucking pulling their weight. apparently, Whitey is slacking a little bit. So they had to bring in some people that will actually get the job done, which is already, like, not a dub in terms of, like, pointing that out, because the entire crux of that part of the defense here from the liberals is that, like, oh no, they're here legally because they're here on whatever program that allows them to work and help the labor pool there. But, like, baked into that is the fact that they're there literally for their labor. They're probably getting underpaid as well. They might even be getting overworked in bad conditions because worker protections in this country are not very good, especially in states that aren't relatively solidly blue, and even in states that are solidly blue, have a lot of Democrats in positions of power. Like, what's baked into that is like, yeah, they're there legally, but specifically so that their labor can be exploited to make money for the firms and the CEOs that are having operations there. So pointing that out is just pointing out the fact that the right wing doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, because they never do. It's already pretty bad. Like, the real solution here, you know, these kinds of people, like this guy from the National Review, the editor-in-chief of the National Review, he would want a final solution to this. But like the actual way to make it so that any potential negative externalities of immigrants existing in your country, which statistics have shown is almost only a benefit. Obviously, in places like Springfield, Ohio, they have a lack of resources in terms of support the amount of people, apparently. Like, on paper, that's just the case, and there's going to be growing pains when it comes to that. But like, as long as you know, make it work, as long as you put in the time and try to get the resources to accommodate all the influx of people, down the line, it'll be a benefit. It'll pay dividends, and you'll be able to recoup any kinds of negative externalities from it. But the way to deal with this issue is not even like worker visa type shit or whatever the program is, because that's a band-aid solution. The real option here is to bolster the social safety net, to tax the wealthy more and use the revenues from that, while still, in the liberal sense, and as far as the Democrats are going to go, allow the wealthy to stay way too wealthy and have more money than you will ever see in your entire life, and potentially even your next of kin and next of kin and next of kin's lives as well. Bolster worker protections, worker democracy, so that people who are here, who are citizens, are able to make ends meet, have a higher quality of life, be able to pursue the jobs that they want, and be able to be effective at them because they actually want to be there, and then also allow for a very easy pathway to citizenship. Because, like I say, the statistics show that immigrants literally only benefit the economy wherever they go. It's almost like how the United States popped off a little bit earlier on. Now, obviously, one of the main reasons why a pathway to citizenship and things such as that for immigrants' rights are being stopped is, you know, the obvious point of people like this and other people in positions of power, like one of the nominees for president, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and a variety of other people in the Republican Party, the conservative movement, and even a lot of the Democrats, because they've kind of conceded in terms of the immigration thing to the right in many ways. They are better, but like they've conceded a lot in ways that I don't think they need to. But it's partially because of the racism and the fact that they're worried that a bunch of melanated people will come in and like they think they're inherently better at sex, so they'll like steal all the women because, you know, people that have an actual culture and make good music and make good food, like that's just a more appealing option. And the music part will make them, you know, have a little bit more rhythm, and that's usually going to confer benefits as well in a variety of ways. That's their worry, right? People like this are worried that they will non-consensually have their wife be taken by a superior man. Now, obviously, a person like this clearly is okay with his wife, if he is married, getting railed by another man, regardless of the race. It's probably better if that man has a bit of melanin in the skin, but that's a consensual arrangement. You know, he's probably not okay with it non-consensually, right? And that's with the inherent understanding that his wife will remain his wife and not be taken away. Regardless, it's an insane fucking fear that they have that's baked into the history of this country via slavery and whatnot that I've talked about in the past. But it's also because the owner class, the CEOs, even the shareholders, you know, the small business tyrants in this country, even the corporate interests, exploit the labor of people who are not documented, who are not full citizens, because they know that they can hold the threat of deportation over their head. So when it comes to, you know, Joe America, who was born here, and because of the fact that the RNG was good and, you know, he rolled the dice well when being conceived in a person who lived in the United States of America, he's a United States citizen for the fact that he was born here. Right, so you gotta pay income tax, you pay sales tax as well, you do all this stuff to add to the economy and help people ideally in that way, if it's, you know, allocated to good places. Oftentimes it isn't, but I'd change that. When it comes to people who are not citizens, while they're working, they're not paying income tax because they don't have a social security number, because they are not documented, and because of this, they do not need to be paid the minimum wage, because they have no standing with the United States of America. They have no worker protections in that way, because they are not documented. So you can, as a capitalist, owner, as an employer, pay that person $1 an hour. And if that worker ever is like, yo, I would like to, be able to make enough money to live and not essentially just be a slave to you, if that's all right, they could be like, okay, well, if you come to me with that kind of language, I'm gonna call ICE over here and get your ass deported back to Mexico. And they'll be like, but I came from Egypt, brother. I'm not Mexico. I'm putting you in Mexico anyway. And, such is life. So that you can't really do that. Like, if you thought that it's difficult already to ask your boss for a wage as a U.S. citizen who has got some amount of worker protection behind them because of the U.S. government, it's going to be even worse for immigrants that are not documented yet. The way you fix that and make it so that the immigrants pay more into the system, mind you, they already pay a substantial amount of our tax revenues through sales tax because they purchase goods and services in this country, the United States, and the sales tax associated with that will go to the pool of tax revenues the country can use to fund a variety of things. If you're worried about them being a so-called drain on the economy, make them full citizens so that they end up paying income tax. Bada bing, bada boom. You get more tax revenues. They're on a same playing field. If you want to be selfish about it, Joe America, the reason why they're taking our jobs as a thing is because employers are able to pay immigrant workers who are not documented $1 an hour, whereas on paper, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. That's the minimum they have to pay your ass, and a lot of other states will have higher minimum wages. And if they don't do that, then the state will get that employer in trouble. They don't have that kind of threat when it comes to paying an immigrant worker $1 an hour if they're not documented. And that makes the competition in the labor pool harder for Joe America, because they can pay an undocumented immigrant $1 an hour, but they have to pay her ass at least $7.25. They're going to choose the $1 an hour option because that person is essentially a slave to them. They can't do anything else. They can't ask for a raise. They just get deported. So, like, if that's a problem for you as well, if they have an easy pathway to becoming a full citizen, suddenly they're on an even playing field to you, and they have to be paid $7.25 as well. So at that point, it comes down to a more meritocratic system of whoever might be a better worker or have a better resume. But we also know that there's a lot of racism baked in as well. I feel like a lot of these firms that employ undocumented immigrants who happen to be brown people a lot of the time are only doing so because of the fact that they can save a lot of money on labor costs by paying them $1 an hour and a firm handshake. If they could, do that with white people instead, a lot of these employers who already see those oftentimes brown people that are immigrants that are undocumented as less than human, they'd probably prefer to have white people working there for $1 an hour instead if they could. It's just often that they can't because of the fact that a lot of the white people are U.S. citizens and therefore have to be paid the minimum wage. And they do try to, pay less than the minimum wage a lot of the time for full citizens. So you just get an easy pathway to citizenship. Like, Ronald Reagan is literally more progressive on this point than Donald Trump. And Ronald Reagan fucking ruined this country in a variety of ways. But he was, I think it was Ronald Reagan, who was for amnesty for illegal immigrants. I don't know exactly the motivation for that, but that's a more progressive position to have. It's insane. But that's the problem that the inherent contradiction of conservatism and right-wing views brings you to, right? It's hard to keep these two conflicting ideas in your mind at the same time of, well, we need to be able to run on immigration to win elections because we can fearmonger about brown people coming and taking, your wife and your job and whatever. But we also want to be able to use them for their labor too because we can exploit them because they're not citizens, so they don't have to be paid minimum wage, and we can just deport them if they get too uppity about it. Also, the fact that we do end up choosing to hire them over Joe America because of that. We can flood the right-wing media ecosystem with propaganda suggesting that it's the immigrants' fault instead of the person who's hiring them over Joe America, and then it'll increase hatred for immigrants from the Republican voter base and reactionary voter base, and then we can use that to run on elections as well, and it'll be better for the shareholders and the capital owners that donate to our campaigns as well as politicians. So all of that kind of works together to produce good benefits for the employers in that instance, the right-wing politicians who are running for Republican seats and whatnot, but it ends up hurting the country as a whole because it would be better if they were able to be full citizens easier so that they could pay into income tax and a variety of other things, which would then bolster the tax revenues the country gets, which would help everybody, including the native population. And that would also have a snowball effect of making the economy better as well, but that's more of a long-term goal, and it also entails allowing a bunch of brown people into your country and you're scared of them, so you can't do that. Right? There's so many different contradictions that go on that they've kind of just settled on this little limbo position that they're actually losing a lot of ground on, historically speaking, but there's an uptick, obviously, of anti-immigrant sentiment, especially in the fucking UK and the EU, but also, in the United States, because it's an election season, so Republicans are gonna, before any election, you'll notice this, before literally any major election, especially the presidential, when it gets close enough to election day, when people are gonna be voting, there's gonna be some problem that they're either going to invent, like they're eating your dogs and cats thing, or or, just vague gesturing at immigrants being spooky or whatever that they'll use to gin up fear in their base and get people to come out to vote out of fear, because they have nothing to offer. They can only make you scared and vote out of fear because they don't have any actual policies that help the average person who's voting for them. They only care about helping the wealthy. They only care about helping corporate interests that end up hurting the people who vote for the Republican Party. That's all they have. Democrats, on the other hand, are in a similar position in that they are still beholden to corporate interests, but they've been able to position themselves in such a way that they are marginally better on some immigration-related issues and vastly better on, at least with Joe Biden's NLRB and hopefully Kamala Harris and Walz's, better on workers' rights and labor issues, also better on healthcare and social safety net programs for the people in the country, generally better on the economy because Republicans end up driving up the deficit and then a Democrat wins and then they inherit that and then they talk about the fact that there's a huge deficit and we're in so much debt. And then the Democrat ends up spending time fixing the way that the economy was broken by the Republicans because the Republicans' only interest is giving more money to the wealthy, which is achieved by reducing taxes on the wealthy, which therefore reduces the tax revenues of the United States of America that go to social safety net programs that help the average American, and so on and so forth. Right? And that is the endless cycle that we're locked in the hostage situation that is living under the United States government and the two-party system. The way you get out of that is by trying to get proportional voting system in local races, and then hopefully enough momentum for that ends up helping you get proportional voting in state elections, and then hopefully at some point you get enough states to have enough dominoes to fall to get it federally, so that there's no longer a spoiler effect for third parties, and so that the first past the post system doesn't entrench a two-party system, but rather you have a third party that a preferential voting system will allow you to vote for, and if they don't get enough votes, it ends up going to your second choice, which in the case for left-wingers would be Democrats. Or maybe even your third choice, in terms of an electoral system. Now, you could say, the way you get out of that is revolution. Depends on what kind of revolution you're talking about, because I think revolutionizing the way that we do elections here, that's somewhat a political revolution, right? But I mean, if you're talking about, violent revolution, good luck with that. I'm more in the pragmatist side of things when it comes to any kind of moves we're going to make, because I want to stop bleeding where it is as much as possible, and so on and so forth. Because, I'd rather people who are being harmed stop being harmed as much as we possibly can. And hopefully we can move the needle in a variety of other ways to make elections more fair, get publicly funded elections, get, money out of politics, yada, yada, yada. Hopefully move past the first past the post system, and then eventually put at least hopefully a third party that has a chance of winning in a position that has further left views than Democrats, that then forces the Democrats further to the left to be able to make up the difference because they don't want to lose the power that they have as a party, and hopefully that moves the needle because, Bernie Sanders run for the Democratic Party ticket, which is the one of the two parties that can win. No other parties can, just the Democrats and Republicans. That actually moved the needle in many ways and shaped a lot of the labor protections and the NLRB under the Biden administration, as well as the rhetoric that Kamala Harris has been using as well. Some good stuff. Anyway, we got 15 seconds into this video before we did all that. People were saying that he started the word with an M sound to say migrants, but that was definitely an N. Yeah, and then, he ends the shit with an ER. As far as I'm aware, migrant ends on NT. It's not even close, brother. What are you talking about? You're crazy.
Ponds, only 2 calls. And I think one lesson in this whole story, people don't care about geese.
Also, if he meant to say migrants, why did he stop himself before ending the word? If you started saying migrants and, messed up saying it, I can understand, finishing the word, going, oh, excuse me, and then migrants. But, it's very clear to me that that's not exactly what was happening there. It seems like when he stopped himself saying a certain word, he already said enough of the word to know that that's what he meant to say. He just stopped himself because he didn't mean to say it out loud. It's just what he was thinking. But the word that was in his head came out of his mouth instead of the word he knew he should have said. The dog whistle. Which was migrants in this case. But he's literally giving you information that the Republican Party wants to hide from you, and conservatives in this country want to hide from you, in that when they say things like CRT, DEI hire, when they say things like forced diversity, or when they say things like, oh, we would just want the best person for the job, not, hiring someone just because they're a certain race or gender or sexuality or whatever, or when they say illegal immigrants or migrants, they are just meaning to say the N-word. It is the classic meme of the gun with the silencer on it. The silencer says, in this case, in quotation marks, migrants, and the actual gun is the N-word. You could even go to the dumbass reactionary video of that one dude whose name I don't know, who went to Springfield, Ohio and interviewed a bunch of racist motherfuckers that live there. And the opening clip is this old white dude calling the Haitian migrants, quote unquote, sand monkeys, quote unquote, quote unquote, quote unquote, right? And then the person who's interviewing there just laughs and doesn't push back on that at all. Like, the voters are picking up what the Republican politicians are putting down without the politicians having to say the word. I'm not going to tell you that all Republicans are racist. I'm just going to tell you that the majority of racists vote Republican. I'm not going to tell you that all Republicans are Nazis. I'm just going to tell you that all Nazis vote Republican, you know? It's incredibly clear that even if the person who's voting for the Republican Party in this case isn't like racist or bigoted themselves, they've made the calculation that they don't care enough about the fact that they're voting for a party that is, because they want something else out of it, I guess. So it's like, you're a helpful idiot at that point. It's not good stuff, man. Not good. But I mean, at least he's open about it.
Really hate geese. You know, they all things considered, I think people would prefer Haitian migrants to come and take the geese off the golf course, right? So it's pets, it's the cats and dogs has become the standard. Geese clearly don't.
And for anybody who doesn't know, by the way, when they talk about geese, there is an image of a black man holding a goose. Apparently that wasn't a Haitian migrant, is my understanding. And also, it's not clear if the goose was hunted, which is legal, or if like they found it dead and was just moving it. Maybe they're a fucking taxidermist and they're gonna fucking taxidermy it, which, you know, the legality of that may vary, I'm not too sure. And then when it comes to the eating cats thing, the genesis of this was apparently some woman who is not a Haitian migrant, not Haitian for one, also has voted for the last 6 years of their life, I think. So has been in the US for a long time, longer than when the Haitian migrants came here to Springfield, Ohio, legally, mind you, to work and help save a dying town, because obviously the native-born white population ain't cutting it. Apparently, she was having like a mental episode of some kind, and that's where that comes from. But she wasn't Haitian, but she was black. So they see, okay, Springfield, Ohio, people are talking about immigrants, Haitian immigrants, they're black. Okay, there's a black woman who's having a mental health episode who clearly needs help. We don't care if she's Haitian, say she is, connected to the immigrants, say literally all the immigrants are eating your cats and dogs and also bringing disease. There's a playbook on that, you know, Germany had a lot of experience with in the 30s and 40s. Might as well just copy that homework. Use that to drum up fear in our base as Republicans and drive them to vote for us, try to get Donald Trump elected and JD Vance elected over what would be a Democratic Party that might even level the playing field when it comes to competition for wages for Joe America, like I was saying before, by enfranchising a bunch more people as legal immigrants and then citizens easier so that they have to get paid the minimum wage and also pay more income tax and whatnot, while, you know, undocumented immigrants already pay a lot of sales tax, bolster the economy that way and so on and so forth. Like it's definitely bleak. But like they know they're lying and they don't care. The Republican Party for a long time, I would argue, for, you could say, since the creation of this country, though at the time it wasn't necessarily called the Republican Party at the time. The party switched at a certain point. But the Republican Party, the party that flies the Confederate flag, you know, the flag of a treasonous attempt to secede from the United States of America for the purpose of being able to keep their slaves after slavery was abolished. That party, the Republican Party that flies the Confederate flag, which is a flag literally, it was like, yeah, we're going to make our own country because we want to be able to keep human beings as slaves, specifically Africans that were stolen from Africa and brought here, and then a bunch of generations that were born here since then, because our entire economy is based on the fact that we get free labor from abusing human beings and treating them as subhuman, and it would fall apart without that. They got their shit pushed in the Civil War. The Confederate flag, literally just a hate symbol. It's the symbol of the people that wanted to keep the slaves and wanted to secede because of it, and created the bloodiest domestic war in the United States of America because of that. They got their shit pushed in by the Union, you know, and then years pass, ain't shit changed. They still feel the same way. They still try to, you know, pay people the least amount possible. And now, like I say, even white people are getting enfranchised in the slave class through wage slavery by not getting paid enough to live and therefore being beholden to a company to be able to barely scrape by because you have no other option. Your options are work at your shit job, get exploited for your labor, get paid nothing, work long hours for less wages, for no benefits, deal with the fact that the Republicans want that to be even worse for you because they're consistently a roadblock in the way of Democrats trying to put a modicum of progressive or even liberal reform for workers' rights in place to allow you to, you know, not have to work until you die. Either that or go to a different job that is going to be the same in that way, or be homeless, starve, and then if the Republicans get their way, get turned into biofuel because the Republicans don't like homeless people, even though their policies lead to the fact that people are homeless. Which, I mean, if you think about it, is a replenishing resource for biofuel, if they're able to get to that point. Shit ain't good, man! Listen, they are just evil. Simple as that. And when I say they, I mean the elected Republicans and the people that donate to their campaign. When it comes to the average voter, a lot of them are evil. A lot of them are just fucking stupid as well. So some are too far gone, some you might be able to change. the mind of, move them, closer to the center, maybe even into the left, potentially. And I mean, like, there's a lot of things you could do to stop that evil. We did it well in the Civil War. The Union stopped the evil of the Confederacy. We did it in the Revolutionary War. We stopped the evil of the British monarchy. And luckily, in this case, we could do it through the legislature, if we do it through electoral means, by getting a pathway to citizenship that's very easy, and enfranchising people into working as full citizens. And then also beefing up worker protections for not only the people that are born citizens here, but also the people that become citizens here. And then, making our election system not dog shit and so on and so forth. But I mean, we're not at the point yet, but push comes to shove, people like this are going to do a lot of evil shit to, the out group in this instance. Black and brown people, people of gender and sexuality, minority groups, so on and so forth. The police are a big problem for that. And, mutual aid might be the most effective way if you can help out in your community. Because you should never expect the Democrats to be able to save your ass. They're part of, not the biggest part, but part of a reason why we're still in this position. Though they have gotten a little bit better in terms of rhetoric, at least. And like with the NLRB under Biden, pretty good on workers' rights. So hopefully that trend continues. And they can get back to maybe FDR levels of like needing term limits put against you so that you don't win elections over and over because you're so popular for, the creation of a variety of social safety net programs and work programs that gave this economy a massive boost and made people's lives better. Dude was still a racist though, so like you can keep some of that even. Ideally you wouldn't, but I mean, Democrats will be Democrats. And hopefully we can like fucking excise a lot of this shit from the Democratic Party too, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm rambling. I say that now like I just started rambling a little bit ago, but that's been this entire segment.
I mean, I read online they're protected in Ohio, so I
read online they're protected in Ohio. Geese? Oh, we'll figure it out, I guess. I have to say, if you're worried about the local animal population in a certain area, there's a lot of gun-toting, Republican-born U.S. citizens who are going out and shooting shit they shouldn't be. Now, a lot of the times that ends up, the game they're going after is school children. That's not good. Or, predominantly black supermarkets or churches or even mosques and whatnot. That's not good, obviously. But a lot of Republicans will also go out and, shoot a bunch of shit they shouldn't, like conservatives, the police do, when they shoot a fucking 100 dogs a week or whatever it is. It's a lot. It's more than you'd think. Or when they're like rich fucks like Donald Trump Jr. or whatever who are going to other countries and shooting animals over there and killing them, like elephants or lions and tigers, maybe even bears. Who knows? Shit ain't good. Wasn't it, this is all alleged. I was seeing some shit, though, about the person who was shot at by the Secret Service for having an AK-47 style rifle around where Trump was golfing. As far as I know, the person with the AK style rifle did not shoot the rifle. The shots that were fired were only by the Secret Service, who missed him and ended up tracking him down and making an arrest on the road somewhere, on a highway, I think. Nobody knows what the motivations for bringing the gun there were. It's Florida, so who the fuck knows? Are you able to open carry in Florida? I could Google it, I guess. Open carry laws, Florida. You probably could because Ron DeSantis is so soy. Oh, really? It's generally illegal to open carry in Florida. Well, there you go. Some exemptions for hunting and fishing. Now, you might say, who the fuck's using an AK-style rifle to hunt? But as far as I'm aware, the person who was there with the AK has hunted and said they've hunted with rifles such as that in the past. Could be wrong about that, though. I'm not sure. I remember hearing about that. I think Azan was talking about it. It's not good to hunt with a rifle such as this. Usually you want a clean kill. And therefore, your standard hunting rifle, your long gun, that isn't designed specifically to kill people, it's probably going to be better because you don't want to ruin the meat. But anyway. Can you open carry a gun at gunzone.com? Yes, open carry of long guns, including shotguns, is generally allowed in Florida without a permit. Man, what the fuck? It really depends. Who knows? Maybe, it was legal what he was doing. Who knows? I don't fucking know. We'll find out, I suppose. Because he could have been hunting with it, even though he's insane. Apparently, when it comes to his politics, he's like a never Trump, such like one of the strongest supporters of NATO as well. The fucking median voter, dude. Never Trump Republican. Insane, like, pro-US State Department guy who's like inviting Kim Jong-un to his house or whatever. It's crazy. Anyway. Yeah, no, he voted for Trump in 2016, apparently. But then after that, he had a change of heart, I suppose. Became a never Trump Republican. But yeah, it's being framed, as far as I'm aware, as an assassination attempt. And obviously, if you're the Secret Service in that instance, you're going to assume that anybody with a firearm around the president is a suspect to potentially harm the president because you're in the Secret Service, so you want to be careful about who the fuck has guns around him. And they had a recent event that some people say didn't happen. I'm pretty sure it did, but, you know, the jury's out. At a rally where there was a gunman there. So, like, they're even on higher alert, in this case, rightfully so, as per their job description. But as far as I'm aware, the person with the AK-style rifle did not fire. We don't know the motivations, I don't think, for why they were there with the firearm to begin with. And the shots that were fired were by the Secret Service, trying to neutralize what they perceived as a threat to the president. I will say they did miss as well, apparently. And they had to chase him down onto the highway, I think, and arrested him there. Now, the question is, like, why would you run in that instance? Maybe because you're getting shot at. But I don't know what led up to them getting shot at. I don't fucking know. Anyway, we've gone too far. We've said too much.